Good evening, and welcome to your local Comic Sans podcast. My name's Joshua Nelson. Tonight, I'm here with Patrick Tully and Allie McHale, and we're discussing the upcoming movie Avengers Endgame, which I'm so hyped for. Honestly, I think everyone at this point has been awaiting this final movie to end them all.
Honestly, even my computer's hyped for it, given how long I had to wait in an electronic line for tickets. That was the most stressful thing of this entire month, trying to get Endgame tickets, because Patrick was calling me while I was in my biology class, like, you need to get tickets, and then I tried to order them on one site that kept crashing, had to cancel the order for that site because it didn't go through, and then ended up eventually buying them on Fandango while I was at work. So that was probably the most stressful day I've had, but we have them for the first showing. I'd say the first showing in the U.S. probably because it's 6 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, it'll be one of the first showings, and
Yeah.
it'll be like tied for the first showing in the U.S.
I've heard it's actually before the world premiere, which
When is the world premiere?
I think it's 6 p.m. I could be wrong. I think it's Central Time or Western Pacific Time.
It's
So
probably Pacific Time because
Hollywood.
yeah. So that's a plus. Contrary to like everyone else's experience, I had just logged in 4 times when the site crashed, and I just bought my tickets and left. I thought it was actually going to be much more difficult than what actually happened. And then people told me that they didn't get tickets and that there were long wait lines, and I was mildly amused that I got my tickets in time, but also felt kind of sad because half of the people I was going with didn't get tickets.
we have them now.
Yeah.
Yes, all 3 of us are going to see the same showing.
It's been quite an adventure. And honestly, it's the completion of like 10 years of my life going out to the theater, seeing a movie.
What's the first Marvel movie that you saw in theaters?
The first Marvel movie that I saw in theaters was actually Iron Man 1.
No
Really?
way.
Yeah.
You've been with it since the beginning.
However, I didn't stick with it. Up until about like Age of Ultron, I was just kind of on and off. I liked Avengers 1, but I didn't watch most of the Cap movies or any of that up until like right before Ultron hit.
Yeah, I was very late in the game, I guess, in terms of being a fan. I didn't really get into it until Ultron, and then I went back and watched all of them. But I remember like being in middle school and everyone being like, "Oh, the Avengers," and just thinking, "Stupid superheroes." But now I am totally engrossed in the series.
Yeah, mine was whichever one came after Iron Man 2. It was either Thor or Captain America. That was my first one. I believe it was.
I think it's Thor. No, Thor was after Iron Man 1, right?
Because I think it's Captain America.
Yeah.
Because it goes. How does it even go?
It went Iron Man, Incredible Hulk.
Which
I
doesn't
think
count.
Iron Man 2.
Yeah, and then Captain America.
No, Thor, because I think they find the hammer in Thor. That's why Coulson gets called off.
Oh.
Because
Hold on,
Coulson gets called out to New Mexico. Well, you look that up. What are you guys most hyped about for Endgame?
I have no idea. Well, I don't know. Probably Thor, because just Thor's my favorite character. I just cannot wait to see him with Stormbreaker again. I'm really, really, really hoping that they do fan service to Thor 1, and when he when he summons Stormbreaker, he like gets all that like armor that like floats onto his skin. You know what I'm talking about? Thor 1?
That'd
Because
be
they haven't
so
shown
cool.
that since Thor 1.
Yeah, they haven't shown him in his full suit.
Apparently they were supposed to in Infinity War, but they didn't.
Saving
But
it for the big show.
I would love to see he like summons Stormbreaker, and then all the little individual chainmails like snap onto his wrist and his arm, and yeah, that would be cool. But I mean, that's not like the thing I'm looking forward to most. It's probably like Thor just being a badass and probably beating on Thanos. I would hope. I don't know though.
Well, I've heard the Russos just confirm that Stormbreaker actually is not as powerful as the Gauntlet.
Yeah.
So that's going to imply that Thor is probably not going to be able to hold his own against Thanos with
Although the Gauntlet, remember the Gauntlet got fried when he snapped.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it is now. I know at first it was like when Thanos hadn't snapped, it wasn't. It just like the only reason Thor was able to wound him is because he got caught off guard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he got blindsided by lightning, and then Thor threw his axe at him. So, like,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to maintain your focus.
I think I'm still looking it up because Wikipedia is being unhelpful. I think the most thing that I am excited for is just how. I think I'm excited for one, like how they're going to, resolve everything. I think I just really am looking for emotional closure at this point because after Infinity War, we all saw it together in Vienna and sat on the floor of our Airbnb eating McDonald's for 2 hours, just completely emotionally wrecked. I am just really looking for emotional closure. And then also just what they're going to do after this, because think about it, this has been building up for 10, almost 11 years now, because Iron Man came out in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
How are you gonna have a bigger villain than Thanos that had all this hype that literally had years? I know they can, but it's just I'm excited, to have that resolve, to be able to see all the characters come back together, especially after. I'm excited to see Tony and Cap reunite, because I think that.
Oh well, you don't know if that's gonna happen. I've heard some theories that the Tony and Cap scene was completely fake, and that
I heard that it was fake, but I heard that it was fake because it looks like Cap's suit was painted over.
Yes, but I've also
the Russos confirmed it was fake.
Yeah, I know that, but they didn't say to what extent it was fake.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a theory that what if it is completely and totally fake, and that Tony actually dies in space, and then they have to go back in time. And then Tony's back from 2012.
Yeah,
but he's really dead in the modern day.
I don't know. I like the theory that I heard a couple weeks ago that basically the first act of the movie is they're all gonna go.
Oh yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that theory. That's just one that I've heard.
I think my favorite theory so far is that Captain Marvel is gonna show up, and then they're all gonna go, and Tony's gonna get back, and then everyone's gonna be reunited, and then they're gonna go and try and beat Thanos. Literally avenge people, not try and fix anything, just, kill Thanos to, have some justice.
Yeah, and Hulk is gonna stay behind, too. Isn't Banner's not gonna go with them. That's what I've heard from that theory. That, Banner stays behind.
I'm not sure, because I think this is all, based on Tony's vision in Ultron, is that they're all gonna go, but they're all gonna die, except for Tony. And so then Tony goes back to Earth, just completely, defeated, and I think kind of with pre-screenings, you kind of heard that the first 20 minutes are really, really rough, and it just guts you again. So I think that's kind of where I'm going on this. Tony goes back completely defeated, and that's when Ant-Man comes out of the quantum realm, and then they have to go back and, get Cap and get everyone who died to, and try and defeat Thanos.
Jeez.
So it's really dependent on Tony, kind of how Doctor Strange said it in Infinity War, it all rests on Tony, because he and Ant-Man have to go back and do it themselves, but get help, with everyone else in the past along the way.
Yeah, and that would be a good closure for a lot of the characters. I mean, and that because you wouldn't have this raw, overpowered Thor that could just stomp all of Thanos' armies. You'd actually have to go back, and Tony would have to actually convince them that, I'm here to help you guys. Mm-hmm. There'd be more plot to it than I think a simple let's go beat up Thanos for the 1000th time in a giant team-up movie. I like that theory, personally.
One thing I've heard about Thor, you reminded me when you said Thor just beating out Thanos' army. I heard that it's something in the Battle of New York. It might not even be at the Battle of New York. I just heard that people have been saying that at Avengers Tower, Thanos for some reason attacks with his Chitauri army.
I heard that
and
too.
And Thor has to assemble an army, which I've heard is actually Hela and all of her dead minions. And then Captain Marvel goes to get the Nova Corps, or what's left of it, on planet Xandar. Where Thanos took the Power Stone from. And then it's this huge, massive army fight along with, Thanos versus all the Avengers.
Yeah.
I don't really know how that would work with time travel, though.
Maybe that ends up happening because Tony knows everything. Tony knows that Hela's out there. Maybe
Why does Tony know?
Tony should know. I'm sure they briefed in all of that. He'll know about Captain Marvel. And if Captain Marvel is called back, like at the Battle of New York, she could go out and get the full Nova Corps. And Hela's armies would be entirely strong as well if they were brought back out then as allies.
Oh, shoot.
Then that'd prevent Ragnarok from happening.
Yeah, the thing that it'll be interesting to see like how many of the movies get retconned almost after Infinity War if time travel is involved.
Yeah. Another big theory I've heard is that the Guardians of the Galaxy won't even come together because they're going to get the Power Stone before they even take it.
Interesting.
Yeah, but is there a third Guardians of the Galaxy or is it just that?
There is supposed to be a third.
So
I've also heard that.
I've heard that
in
Guardians
order to not
together.
have stuff like that happen, they're going to try to chip pieces off of the Infinity Stones. So that whatever happens with the stones, it can still happen, but they can still take a piece back and put it in a smaller gauntlet that's made out of Thor's hammer.
A pocket-sized gauntlet, if you will,
that
for
Tony
travel
Stark wears.
purposes.
I mean, it's insane, all this stuff that you hear. Like,
yeah.
I've heard that Tony's going to wear a gauntlet made out of the Uru metal that Thor's hammer was made out of. But then I've also heard that Hulk's going to wear a gauntlet. And if Hulk's going to wear a gauntlet, it's got to be bigger than Tony's gauntlet. So it's like it's just insane.
What if they all get gauntlets? Everyone, it's like Christmas. Or like Oprah. You get a gauntlet. You get a gauntlet. Everybody gets a gauntlet.
Well, let's talk about like the elephant in the room though, Ultron.
Is he an elephant?
Well, no. Many would say he's not an elephant in the room. But,
But
explain to them otherwise.
I do have personally love this theory.
I do too.
The theory kind of goes like this. Ultron wasn't really dealt much of a justice in Age of Ultron. I'd at least personally say he's always been one of the big bads, even more than Thanos in the comics. And he just didn't seem that relevant. The Age of Ultron was more like the 5 days of Ultron.
Yeah.
And even then, he wanted to save the world. That's what he talked about. He's going to save humanity. This whole theory is that Ultron's going to end up being the big bad of Endgame and taking the gauntlet from, say, Thanos or taking the Infinity Stones after the Avengers collect them, which he does in the comics. He beats out Thanos, who has a gauntlet, takes it because of his trickery, because of his ability to shapeshift. What are your thoughts on that theory?
You go on first.
I think the one thing that I guess I'm just thinking like if they're really going, and maybe this is just me being like a time travel purist, but like I feel like there would be allusions to that in Age of Ultron, but then I'm just thinking again, Age of Ultron wasn't directed by the Russo brothers. It was directed by Joss Whedon, and that was his last Marvel movie, right? I think so. Yeah, and so I think that could still happen. I don't know. I think it'd be an interesting twist. I think it would kind of be, I don't know. I think it'd be kind of slightly disappointing in the sense of like I really envision, Tony or Cap or Thor, like those, like the Avengers beating Thanos, and not necessarily like Ultron coming in kind of from the outside, but I could definitely see him being involved somehow with the event of Age of Ultron being relevant. Ultron as a character assisting them, but ultimately I want Tony or Cap or Thor, like those big three. I think it should be one of those people that deals the final blow to Thanos or Hulk.
One other theory that I've heard is that the Mind Stone's actually controlling everyone. The Russo brothers confirmed that Loki was actually under the influence of the Mind Stone for the entirety of the Avengers movie, and that Thanos waited till the end to get the Mind Stone, and that the Mind Stone has secretly been one of the actual major players in the game the whole time. I think it'd be a huge twist. I don't know where this would go or what they do with this, but I've just been thinking about it a little bit and looking for some more thoughts on it.
So what do you mean? What do you mean by controlling everything?
The Mind Stone is like semi-conscious in this theory, and is trying to influence all the outside events on its own. Whether or not
in the comics that was the case with the Soul Stone.
Mm-hmm.
And the Soul Stone is what was in Vision's head in the comics.
Yes.
So I guess I don't know. maybe it's like a modernist. We don't care about souls, but we care about minds. No, I definitely think, like, I mean, there's one, I think that could work really well with, like, the previous movies, because just one thing came to mind. When they're doing, in Age of Ultron, when they're scanning the Mind Stone, they say, like, it's thinking.
Yeah.
So I think, like, that semi-conscious Mind Stone, I think that would be a really interesting twist. And then, I don't know, you could kind of, you know, looking to the future after, like, life after Endgame, which is coming very soon. Like, how does what does Marvel do after that? You could kind of, I don't know, do you think this is going to be the end of the Infinity Stone arc?
I think it's gonna. This is called the Infinity Arc, so I'm pretty sure at this point it's going to be the end of the Infinity Stones, at least as we know them. Or maybe they're going to get separated and given back to, say, Doctor Strange and the Keepers who would actually use them. But I think this is going to be the end of them being all together and of big team-ups like that. Just closing thoughts. How do you think Marvel's going to progress after this? Do you think they'll be able to live up to such hype ever again? Or do you think they could build back up to that?
I think that they're going to have to... Well, first of all, I think that they'll be able to at least keep us on the hook because they acquired Spider-Man from Sony, and then they just acquired X-Men and the Fantastic Four and the Silver Surfer, Galactus, Doctor Doom, all of that from 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, they have a lot more to work with.
And that's, like, those are who their characters originally... Those were the most popular ones. Like, no one knew who Doctor Strange or Vision or Scarlet Witch was. Like, they knew the X-Men and Spider-Man and The Thing, you know? I think they're totally going to be able to keep us on the hook for movies. But I don't know about, like, the huge build-up. I mean, I think if they were going to do a huge build-up, they would have to do it with, like, Galactus or Kang the Conqueror. Because they already did Ultron, they already did Thanos, they already did Loki. They already did Red Skull, you know? And those are, like, those are the big villains that I think could overtake Thanos even, like, with how destructive they are. Galactus, who literally eats planets, and King the Conqueror, who's a time traveler, which is now, I guess, being opened up with the quantum realm. I've heard a theory that King the Conqueror is actually ruling a city that's in the quantum realm. I've heard that, and they just see him. Like, they don't get and they don't come into conflict with him, but they see, like, there's this dude who's ruling this massive city in the quantum realm. So, you know, if he's a time traveler and he can try to go back and screw everything up, maybe he could be another threat. But I just think it'll be pretty easy for them to keep making movies, but I think it'll be hard for them to do another huge saga like they did with Thanos.
I think the Russo brothers have expressed in interviews that they really want to do Avengers Secret Wars, which would be really interesting to do because it would bring together, it has the X-Men and Fantastic Four and the Avengers. So I think that's something that that's another thing that, you know, the Russo brothers have expressed interest in filming that. So that could be the next arc, is a build up to Avengers Secret Wars, which we could have a really long discussion about in another time.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do, to see if they'll be able to keep up with the hype, especially with all the new title acquisitions and mashups that, who knows, we could see a Marvel and Star Wars mashup at this point.
I would actually like to see just a reboot.
Yeah. A reboot of what?
Of the MCU. So that we can see the X-Men, the Avengers, and the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man all in their prime interacting with each other. Because, you know, when they're going to be making X-Men and Fantastic Four movies and Spider-Man movies, most of the Avengers that we originally know are going to be done.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be opposed to a reboot.
I just think the thing that I would be wary of a reboot is, like, a lot of people, because there are already Fantastic Four and X-Men movies, like, I like how Marvel did it introducing Spider-Man with not having an origin story. I just don't want another set of origin stories. Yeah.
Anyways, though, this has been a great discussion with you guys, talking about a ton of Endgame theories, but that's all it really is at the end of the day, a Endgame theory.
Yeah.
In a little bit less than a week.
Yeah. To be continued. This has been Comic Sans Podcast. Have a good night.